a good time for us, hopefully, to assess how much we know, to learn, keep learning, right? We never stop learning. It's just a way for us to make sure that we don't have knowledge gaps, right? Especially since a lot of us were like elevating ourselves into consultations, and also to get confidence, because you guys know a lot more than you think. First question, Emma, an F1 student admitted under Diaz, violated her status on March 1st, 2020. USCIS discovered the violation while adjudicating her request for change of status, denied her request on August 1st, 2020. When did she begin to accrue a lawful status? B, August 2nd, 2020, the day after USCIS denied a request for change of status. So for F1 student, anyone who's entered on DS, the unlawful presence actually begins after USCIS determines you have violated your status or an immigration judge. We had a policy change on this actually during the Trump administration, where they said it's actually on the date of violation. And then it was litigated, overturned, so we'll see what happens, but that's the current policy. Lily was admitted to the US as a non-immigrant with a Form I-94 that expired on January 1st, 2009, but in October 5th, 2008, she properly applied for adjustment of status. She did not file any application to extend her non-immigrant stay. She remained in the US after the I-94 expired. Which of the following best describes her current circumstance?
Because she doesn't have status, but she's not accruing unlawful presence because she has it pending for you.
Correct. And why is she not in lawful status is because when you're in lawful status, that means you have lawful non-immigrant status. So technically, when you file a 485, you're in a period of authorized stay. So that means the Attorney General is saying you can stay in the United States, but does that mean you have lawful status? No, right? You're only in lawful status if your I-94 hasn't expired yet. So that's why we advise a lot of our clients, if you have underlying status, try to extend it if possible, because you never know what happens if your 485 gets denied, even incorrectly, right? And you want to file a motion to reopen. The moment your 485 gets denied, you don't have lawful status in the US unless you have an underlying one. So the second part of this is that we want to share all the wonderful things that we did over the past year. So celebrate each other's successes, but also just as importantly, we want to learn from each other, right? Because if we just keep that knowledge to ourselves, then we can't really grow from a firm.
Amy, she did an NA3 case. The thing is, a lot of people try to do NA3 on their own and it gets denied. But Amy did it and it got approved. So what she wanted to share and teach everyone is that just because the law is there, NA3, right? You're a mother, you gave birth abroad, you come back in, other people have been successful. Of course, my child should be able to get a green card. That's not always the case. It's still up to the officer. So still should prepare a good entry package.
I wanted to talk about a case we did recently with Grace. Our client is currently on L1. They wanted to file for an EB1C petition, and they're an executive at a fintech company. Background on the case itself is the client previously filed for EB1A twice. They were denied. When we got the case, we looked at the previous filings that were denied or were issued an RFE, and we noticed that they didn't really take into account what was filed prior. And I think it's really important to remain consistent across previous filings, just because that's something that could create an issue later on if an officer were to review the overall background of that client's immigration history. And in the end, the case got approved within, I believe, a week. It was really fast processing. If we are working on cases and we know that the client has previous immigration history, I think it's really important to look at previous cases and just their overall history, because sometimes we're just filing a case, we might not look into their entire past and we might realize maybe they violated something. Like, it's important to figure out the best way to approach that if there is some sort of violation.
For our client, he had a green card and he had been abroad in Argentina for about 6 months. And then when he came through CBP in Texas, he was questioned, and I believe previous CBP officers had told him to apply for I-131 before. So they kind of saw his case history, and because he hadn't, they basically ended up confiscating his green card. He was elderly, he spoke Spanish, he answered all the questions wrong. And then they basically keep a record of all his questions. So we got to see all of the really incriminating feedback that he gave them. So we tried to contact the CBP offices. And then we also reached out to the I-407 department. And then we also filed an I-90. And with the I-90, he was able to get his new green card. So I think the lesson is that you can try multiple things at once because you don't know what's going to work.
This was for an applicant who entered the U.S. without inspection in 2004. He stayed ever since. He married his wife, who is a U.S. citizen, in 2018 and then filed for a waiver of unlawful presence in 2020. For the initial filing, the extreme hardship arguments mainly focused on the fact that her parents passed away from cancer. And after her parents' deaths, she suffered from a pretty serious car accident in 2019. And the challenging part for this case was that they lacked a lot of financial documents. They basically had nothing with both their names on it regarding their finances. Because of that, USCIS issued an RFE in January of 2024. From the RFE, they basically explained that what was initially submitted did not substantiate extreme hardship, especially in the financial and the medical parts. I worked on the RFE response for this. Basically, the only thing they gave us, I believe, were W-2s and tax returns. So I had to lay it all out on the table, and I noticed between 2019 and 2020, there were a huge discrepancies in their incomes. And I kind of connected it back to the fact that it was because of the car accident. She was unable to work for that entire year. And because of that car accident, they lost about $25,000 in income of their previously total $50,000. And we had to actually use these hard numbers to prove that she had to rely solely on his income and she had no other means of making a living because of her car accident, and then because she was putting herself through physical therapy as well. After sending in the RFE, the case was approved a month later. Well, I learned that even if you're given a case that lacked a lot of substantial documents, you kind of learn to be creative and flexible enough to make the evidence work for yourself.
So in our industry, in this map that we live in, where there's bad actors that try to defraud clients, where there's government agencies that are unpredictable, how do you survive in this game for the long run? In my opinion, my style is when I talk to clients, my goal is not to tell you yes or no. My goal is to share with you what I know, my knowledge, to help you assess the situation. I'm not sales trying to earn your money. I'm not trying to swindle you. I'm teaching you so we can go through this journey together and win. And when we win as a team. I'm honest, I'm transparent. The world is already super complicated. That is how we've built this firm. We have the blessing that there's so many different people in different areas, business immigration, family immigration, consulate work, border work, that we get to experiment and learn. So we have a very unique company. It might not be for everyone, but at least that's the way I build it because of the industry that we're in. You cannot learn everything. And even if you do know everything, within a year, everything will change and you have to relearn everything. And even if you do know everything, do you have the time to do everything? You can't. So the best way is to develop a whole team of people and everybody does what they're best at. I hope you guys saw that today.